So you've been told that you have the MTHFR gene and you're vegan or just prefer a plant-based lifestyle. And you're probably wondering, can I continue being a vegan or primarily plant-based while having the MTHFR gene? This is a question that's come up a lot, and I really want to answer it because I personally was vegan for 6 years before finding out I had the MTHFR gene. I battled crippling brain fog, fatigue, and other mystery-based symptoms, and really understanding how to optimize my methylation was one of the key pieces of my health puzzle. And I want to share with you today how to optimize your labs, your diet, and your supplementation as a vegan so that you yourself can decide if you want to continue down this path or if you want to optimize your methylation through other means. Hey there, I'm David, and I'm an integrative health practitioner that helps highly sensitive people and empaths thrive in body and mind. So like I said, I personally have 2 alleles of the C677T MTHFR gene. I was vegan, unhealthily vegan, for 6 years prior to my healing journey. And basically I was suffering from chronic fatigue, brain fog, and was dismissed by a lot of doctors. Understanding how to optimize methylation really lulled me out or took me out of that bout of chronic fatigue and just overall stagnation in my life. So before we get into the tips, I want to address something up front, which is why veganism is particularly challenging when you have MTHFR. This is what people say, this is what people bring up, and it's mainly because of the relationship between something called homocysteine and vitamin B12. Homocysteine is a sulfur-containing amino acid that basically is responsible for many things in our body, such as energy production of red blood cells, all sorts of stuff. And homocysteine is broken down by B12, B6, and folate. So if you've spent any time researching MTHFR, you've undoubtedly come across those 3 vitamins. And so when homocysteine is elevated, it is a sign that these breakdowns are not taking place. This is part of the reason why you may feel really tired or lethargic when you have untreated MTHFR. Many times people mistake this as just, oh, you're vegan, you're not getting enough nutrition. It's absolutely not the case. This is a much more nuanced scenario. The risk of having chronically elevated mainly is around cardiovascular issues. Additionally, you could also have cognitive impairment, brain fog, actual neurological issues like Alzheimer's, and then low bone mineral density as well. That being said, there is more nuance to this because, for example, if you look at another gene called the ApoE4 gene, if you have Alzheimer's in your family lineage, I highly recommend that you test for this gene as well. If you have this gene, what this means is that consuming a high-fat, high-protein diet is going to put you at something like some sort of exponential risk of getting Alzheimer's yourself. So in that case, a plant-based, a whole food plant-based diet is actually the remedy to not getting Alzheimer's. So there's a little bit of an interplay here. So on the one hand, MTHFR puts you at one risk, other genes put you at another. So it's important to exercise a lot of nuance here. Okay, so now that we know that the inability to convert B12 puts you at risk for the elevated homocysteine, and then the elevated homocysteine puts you at risk for all these other things. So that's the main issue going on here with the MTHFR and the reason that people advise against vegan diets. So now what is the solution? How do we optimize our diet, supplementation, etc.? So actually a whole food plant-based diet free of processed foods and inflammatory omega-6 or omega-6s, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, is really going to be the foundation. Of course, you want to include a lot of folate-based foods, which is very easy on a primarily plant-based diet. This is one of the pitfalls that I made is I was eating way too many processed foods as a vegan. Forgive me, I was only 18 to 25 years old at the time. And yeah, so that would be your spinaches, broccoli, nutritional yeast for that vitamin B12, and many others. So avocados, of course. So that would be the starting point. I don't think that there's really that much nuance there. It's pretty simple to emphasize those foods. Put 2 handfuls of spinach in your smoothie, stuff like that would be fine. When it comes to supplementation, I recommend 2 things. One is a foundational activated multivitamin. So the one that I use is in the description below. It's called a daily nutritional support, and it already has full spectrum vitamin Bs or activated B vitamins. So that's things like methylcobalamin, right? You don't want to have folic acid, you want to have 5-MTHF, right? So that's the ideal versions of those. Additionally, you may want to take a methylated methyl complex of some sort, a supplement dedicated to methylation. The one that I personally use is called Thorne MethylGuard. There are others by companies like Metagenics and also Seeking Health by Dr. Ben Lynch. So you can definitely try those as well. I would take the full dose of the foundational multivitamin and then perhaps about half the dose of the, let's say, of MethylGuard. So in the case of Thorne, they recommend 3 capsules per day. I would take 1 to 2. And the reason is because I don't think you need to overdo the B vitamins necessarily, as long as you're conscientious about your diet. At least, let's say at breakfast, you try and emphasize those foods. So from there, you're going to want to focus on lab testing. So because your conversion is a little bit uncertain, it is obviously compromised. Your conversion of B vitamins, which then influences your homocysteine, which then influences energy production, your well-being, brain fog, etc. You're going to want to be testing your homocysteine, your B6, your B12, your B9, and your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. You're going to want to test these in the beginning as you're optimizing, I would say every 3 months, until you find a stack, so to speak, a stack of diet, of foods that you eat, as well as supplements, lifestyle factors, etc. Another thing to keep in mind is that stress consumes B vitamins. So if you are under a lot of emotional stress in particular, if you're in fight or flight, if you have a dysregulated nervous system, then this is going to increase your need for B vitamins. That's a very overlooked thing that people aren't taking into account. So if you're in a very stressed period of life, you're consuming the same amount of B vitamins. Your labs may show that you are nearing deficiency or just a little bit lower than usual. In that case, you may actually need to be consuming more, which is why I really emphasize the importance of regular testing, especially in the first year or two as you're just acclimating to it, and of course feeling into how you feel on a regular basis, because if you have MTHFR and it's untreated, you know how you feel. You feel really exhausted, you feel really tired, you feel burnt out all the time. So it'll be pretty apparent to you when you do not feel that way. The last thing that I mentioned is omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. And the reason for this is because many vegans or many vegan-based foods are using a lot of omega-6, inflammatory omega-6s, especially the processed foods. And I personally found that when I was a vegan, it was really hard to get my omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, or even just my omega-3s, into an ideal level. After having mercury toxicity, also due to my MTHFR mutation, I just didn't feel comfortable eating seafood. I incorporated other animal proteins. Seafood just felt very triggering for me. So I consumed algae or vegan omega-3 products. I've tried at least 5 or 6 of them after thorough research, and they just do not move the needle on the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. And this is a really important marker of inflammation. And yeah, so this is another thing that I would just recommend also as a vegan, is really optimizing that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. If you choose to stay vegan, that's completely up to you, but you may be compromising a little bit on that inflammatory marker. Since I've switched to a high EPA fish-based formula without eating fish, so I still do not eat any seafood at all, I get vegan sources of omega-3s in my diet, things like a couple tablespoons of chia seeds in my smoothie. Then my omega-3 ratio is impeccable. It's very good and it requires almost no effort. So depending on your motivations for maintaining a vegan-based lifestyle, this may be a compromise, a pescatarian compromise that you may want to incorporate, because it does reap a lot of benefits for your cognition, vitality, and immune system to really have this inflammation marker down. I've included a link to the lab that I use. It's an at-home lab for omega-6 to omega-3s. And yeah, highly recommend doing that one as well. So that's it for today. In short, if you have the MTHFR gene, you do not need to abandon your vegan-based lifestyle. All you have to do is optimize your diet, supplementation, and your lab testing a little bit more than omnivores, just because you're a little bit more susceptible to that low mood, brain fog, chronic fatigue, and eventually cardiovascular issues that could stem from elevated homocysteine levels. I just hope that you don't suffer as much as I did on my journey. If I were vegan today, I think I would feel much more empowered. I'm sure I would be able to thrive now that I have all this information on my bio-individuality, and I wish the same for you. If you got value from this video, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and join me on this journey of optimizing our mind, body, and soul as empaths, as spiritual beings walking this human path. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you move through this life with ease. Much love to you all, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.